Okay. Hello, thank you very much for having me. My name is Kim Dulin, and I am here to talk about innovation in libraries, which is not that different than I think innovation anywhere else. But first of all, who am I? I'm here to talk about two roles. First of all, I am the co-director of the Harvard Law Library Innovation Lab, and I also am the chair of the Harvard Library Innovation Core Group. So we've got a lot of innovation going on at Harvard, or we think we do anyway. And so I run a shop that's an innovation shop at the law school, but I've been involved in the greater Harvard Library innovation effort. So I'm going to focus on that second bit. But this particular slide up here that I'm starting with is just the dichotomy of libraries then and now. So I think we all recognize the old card catalog, or I don't know, maybe some young people in here don't know what that is, but we went in and we looked in the card catalog and we found a subject or a title or an author, and it was all groovy, right? It worked well. The screenshot here is something we've developed in my innovation lab at the law school, and this is a virtual browser of the entire Harvard Library collection, so that's 14 million volumes, and it's scrollable, so you could actually go from A to Z, and it's all of the 73 libraries at Harvard all together. The darker colors represent how often that particular work is used in the Harvard community. So we're not only letting people discover what we own, but how people are using it. And this is just a screenshot of it. It's available, it's up there, and it's actually being used as the front end to the Digital Public Library of America's website for books. So we're very proud of the work we're doing to innovate and make libraries a little bit more user-friendly in the digital age. So it's no news to us that things are changing. Things are changing in publishing, things are changing in libraries, things are changing in newspapers. It's all because of the digital world, and our users expect different things. So I want to tell you, just spend a little time telling you about what Harvard Library did to try to change to meet the new needs of our users and to make ourselves a more innovative organization. Because I bet most of you, when you think about Harvard, you don't think about innovation. Do people? It's pretty much, well, at least our reputation has been, we're very, very old, we're very rich, which is great, but we're not as rich as we used to be, or at least the libraries aren't as rich as they used to be. Harvard's still rich. And we're very set in our ways, and we haven't been the most collegial partner, I don't think, with other libraries, with other folks out in the world. And the other thing is we're overly bureaucratic. Sometimes I feel like we're the Pentagon, it's just getting stuff done there drives you crazy. But in the library space itself, we had over 75 libraries. So that's a lot. And every one of them was doing something different. And so, now let me go to where's the next slide? Yay. So this person, who you might recognize, Drew Faust, our president, decided that she was going to try to make those libraries work better together. And she was going to try to make us more efficient, and maybe there wouldn't be as many libraries, but we would be more focused on our users and our digital content and just meeting the needs rather than, kind of resting on our laurels, which honestly I think we did for a long time. So she implemented a major reorganization of the Harvard libraries, which has been going on now for about 4 years, and there have been some good stuff and some bad things that have happened, but we're persevering. And when the Harvard Library reorganization began, there was a board that was essentially governing and telling us how things were going to work. So there was leadership at the top, and we were super, super lucky to have a visionary leader. And that is John Palfrey, the person in the middle, who was essentially the chair of our board. My former boss at the Harvard Law Library, he's now the head of school at Phillips Andover Academy. So unfortunately, he's left Harvard. But he was from the sort of the internet world. He'd been at the Berkman Center. He knew how to make change. And he was instrumental in getting the Harvard libraries to think about the fact that we didn't have to be the same way we used to be. We could be innovative, we could move, we could be flexible. And so at the beginning of the reorganization, John challenged the Harvard Library Board to commit to pursuing an innovation agenda for the Harvard libraries. And he had 3 points, and I'm going to read them here. He wanted us to signal to the library community and to our users that our new mode of operation will be fundamentally different than in the past. So we're changing, everybody. He wanted innovation to lead to meaningful improvements in the way the Harvard Library engages with and meets the needs of our patrons over time. So John used to always say, we've been great in the analog world. Libraries are great in the analog world. We knew how to do it. But in the digital world, the expectations are so different, and we really have to be flexible and switch and meet those needs. And he wanted us to be as good in the digital world as we've been in the analog world. And then this is the piece where Harvard had sort of not been a good collaborator. He wanted to ensure that the Harvard Library is consistently looking to invent the future of libraries rather than lagging behind at a systemic level, which honestly we had been. There are some great library innovators out there, and smaller schools with less money, and we were lagging behind. So then the other wonderful thing that we had was Robert Darnton, who's the funder. Robert Darnton is the university librarian at Harvard, and the Arcadia Fund has been a very good funder for library initiatives. In fact, it funded the Office of Scholarly Publishing at Harvard. And out of that Office of Scholarly Publishing was created the Harvard Library Lab. That's different than the Harvard Library Innovation Lab that I run. It's the Harvard Library Lab, and it was a funding unit to inspire innovative projects or new initiatives. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a bit. Okay, so out of Palfrey's challenge came these 2 initiatives. One is we really needed to develop a process, a clearly articulated process by which anyone's idea could get noticed and maybe go forward and be tested and deployed. And so that was one of the key initiatives that the board wanted us to think about. And the second initiative was culture. And as you know, you can't be innovative unless you're free to be innovative. And we wanted to foster the growth of a culture of innovation that values ideas and collaborations, even if they don't lead to final projects. As was said before, failure is all part of innovation. If you don't fail, you're kind of not innovating. So those were our 2 initiatives. And so as a result of identifying those, that's when they adopted this innovation core team that I'm the chair of. And there were a number of us from around the Harvard libraries that served on it. But we were given 3 goals we needed to do. First, we needed to assess the current state of innovation practices at Harvard and beyond. Once we did that, implement processes to ensure that innovative ideas can be vetted and implemented. That's the process part. And then test our findings with our users. Pretty simple stuff, it sounds like, but not simple when you get to it. So on current state, we looked around and we interviewed people, we interviewed other schools, we've interviewed our own librarians, we interviewed users, faculty, and we found that there's a lot of very smart people at Harvard. Who work there, not just go there. There's a really, really talented group of folks. And many of them have very innovative ideas. And we have great resources, right? So what's the problem? The problem was there were lots of impediments to us doing anything. And the first impediment that we found was the innovators were widely dispersed because of those 73 libraries. No one was talking to anybody else. So something would be happening at the med school, and the same thing was happening at the divinity school, and no one knew. So there was no consolidation or coordination of efforts. There was no known path to get an innovative idea accepted if you had one. So you could come up with it, but nothing's going to happen. Maybe you talk to someone and they might say that's a great idea, but nothing would happen. The pursuit of innovation was not rewarded. people were not giving time to innovate. They had their jobs, and we're all trying to be efficient. We're all trying to meet the needs of our users, and there's just no time. So that was a problem. And again, Harvard had a history as a poor collaborator with other libraries. So, so as a result, we decided to pursue these two objectives. So for the process, we already had, as I alluded to before, money from the Arcadia Foundation and the Office of Scholarly Communication for the library lab. And the way the library lab was set up was, if you had an idea, anybody in the Harvard library system, or even a student, didn't really matter, but most of the ideas came from librarians and others, you could submit it to the library lab, and they would award, if they liked it, they would award you a certain amount of money. Sometimes it was only a few $100s, sometimes it was more, it was several $1,000s. But they provided grants to promote the development of projects in all areas of library activities and to promote entrepreneurial aspirations of the librarians. And some of the things that the library lab would give you would be technical staff to augment your own technical staff if you didn't have any. A lot of times these ideas would come from just a general librarian, but you needed a web developer to help you make your piece of software or whatever. So they would provide that. They would give you release time if you needed it. They would give you outside money, sometimes equipment. So you just made your pitch and you got your award. And not everybody got an award, but it worked pretty well. So that was already in existence. The other thing that we did is we allowed the individual libraries and schools to do their own thing. Once you said there's an innovation initiative, it kind of opened things up for people to kind of be innovative, and how are we going to be innovative, if you know what I mean. So at the law school, we adopted Google's 80-20 model. Has anyone heard of that? Where it wasn't exactly the way Google does it, but it was, you work on your regular job 80% of the time. 20% of the time, or maybe a day a week, you're free to work on an innovative idea that you have, or perhaps a project that the library's doing that's innovative or different, and it allows you to kind of mix yourself up. And that was very helpful to get people sort of, thinking about innovation and moving. The other thing that was instituted that I think really helped in the process was the Graduate School of Design, which is a cool place and always sort of innovative in and of itself, offered a class called Library Test Kitchen. And what it was is design students were asked to think about the future of libraries and what are they going to look like design-wise. And then they were given the space to come up with something. So one of the cool things that they did was, one of the things I liked the most, it's kind of weird, but somebody developed an inflatable reading room. So it was essentially Mylar. It was big. It was a big Mylar bubble with a zipper, and you could go inside, and it had bean bags and comfy chairs, and air was fanning in, and it was perfectly quiet. And you could just go in there and think. It was totally off-grid. But that was one of the things that the students designed. And there were lots of other weird things like that, and some of them were silly and some of them were useful. But it was all kind of a good thing that Harvard was doing, and it showed we were kind of thinking about moving forward. So then culture was the other piece. And culture was actually, I think, a little bit easier, because once you have something at the top that gives you process to put your ideas through, and you kind of see that people are doing different things, the culture comes along with it. But we decided that we would try to get more folks involved. There's always those leaders in an organization that are innovative and doing things, but we wanted to draw in other people in the Harvard libraries. So the first thing we did was we had an unconference, an innovation unconference. And for those of you that haven't done an unconference, there's no agenda. Everybody comes. You put up ideas of what you think you want to talk about, and then the group votes on those ideas, and then you go off and talk about things. So these are pictures from our unconference. You can see people are putting up little stickies on the chalkboard to figure out what the conferences will be, and then we broke out, and there's folks showing the ideas that people came up with. And so we had about 100 people, and out of that unconference came a report and some recommendations, and it really engaged the community, and people really liked it. We also had a series of what we called strategic conversations that we held about libraries in general. It was kind of wide open. One of them was an Oxford-style debate with the topic, "Resolved Libraries Are Obsolete," and we had, you know, some big name people going back and forth about that. We hosted a hackathon for interested people, interested folks who were developers in our community, and there are many librarians who also are computer science folks now, and they know how to program. And so we had a day-long hackathon where we invited anybody from the Harvard Library community to come in and take the data that we had and work with it, mush it around, do something new, come up with a new tool. And the other thing as part of this culture is that the institution itself started becoming more open. So this was a board initiative. The board said, library staff, get busy, start innovating, but they too then began to think about being more open. And so it was about 2 years ago, the Harvard Library opened its metadata from its catalog to the world. So we put it up on this platform called Library Cloud that we've developed in the Harvard Library Innovation Lab. And so now anyone can take our metadata from our catalog, anyone in the world, and do with it what they want. If you're a programmer, you could see the kind of things Harvard was reading over a period of time, things like that. So again, being kind of a better public citizen with the world. So, results. If you go, this is our YouTube page, and if you go to this page, you can see videos of the different Library Lab projects that have come out of the 4 years of the Harvard Library Lab's existence. And you just click on one and you'll get a little bit of a story about the project and a demo, if the thing is a demo. Not all innovation is technical too. That was the other thing. You could just come up with a different idea, a new way of doing things, and that can be innovation. There was a story about a woman who was pregnant, who was a librarian, and she was on a cart, she didn't want books on the bottom because it was too hard to bend down, and it was too slow, so they just started not putting books on those bottom shelves, and they increased their productivity by, I don't know, 50% or something. So, it's a silly, simple example, but it actually did increase results. So, I guess one thing I want to say is, although we had all this innovation at Harvard, and it was great, we're still not done. And one of the big projects that are the big impediments, I think, to making innovation really work is you've got to be able to get those ideas into production. And I think that's the hardest thing. So, we had this great model where we came up with all these wonderful ideas and we have these things developed. But in the meantime, we're a service organization. We're still working. We're still providing service to our constituents, and we have to meet quotas and all that sort of thing. So there's a central technical infrastructure that has its own work to do. So the hardest thing for us has been scaling those innovative projects that we think are good and making the hard decisions about what mainstream things are we going to forego so we can do these innovative projects, or is there a way to be more efficient with our mainstream projects so that we can make room for it. So we now have a Scaling Innovation Initiative Committee where we take the innovative ideas that have made it up to the top, we put them through a series of metrics about, does this benefit the community, does this benefit, how much money is it, and we vote on that, and then that goes to the Central Technical Committee, and that's how we try to push that into our mainstream technology. But we're still working on it. it's a project, you know, it's in process. So I think my reflections are, it's really, really important to have strong leadership that models innovation and talks the talk, walks the walk. Because if you don't have it at the top, nobody's going to do it below. And that's not to say that they direct it, but that they give you that feeling that you can take the time to innovate, and it's a value to the organization. Provide time for experimentation and failure. It doesn't have to be a lot of time. The 80-20 thing worked really well for us. It didn't, our productivity didn't go down. It actually increased because people were interested in what they were doing and they were collaborating. So that was good. And again, failure is key. You have to fail. If you don't fail, you'll never win. Seed funding is needed. Obviously, we were lucky that we had this money from the Arcadia Foundation, but you don't have to have that much money. It's nice to have a little bit of seed money that can give someone, you know, a leg up with their idea. But I think the most important thing for innovation is providing a space for people to be social, and I think food and drink are key. If you don't give people some time to go out and have a beer or talk with one another or give them pizza, they'll just stay in their cube. You know, you want to get people out there and foster that and say, this is good, this is a good thing, this is not, you know, taking time off from work for silliness. This is a real honest-to-God thing we want you to do. So food, drink, very important. And I think that's all. Thank you.